Buzzed and blessed. Can't say that on Christian radio.
No, you can't say that on Christian radio. That sounds crazy.
But I will tell you, of all the vices that Christians allow, I think coffee is like the one accepted one. We're Maine and Gabel, by the way. I'm Therese Maine, and the one with the spitty laugh, that's Jesse Gabel.
I only got a little bit on the mic, okay? It's not that bad.
We co-host a radio show on Family Life, afternoons on Family Life. You can find out more about that at familylife.org.
Okay, let me tell you a story, okay? I was volunteering in the kitchen at Family Life, and it was right after I was done working here all day, and I thought, I need something to, like, keep me awake. I'll go, like, look in the fridge and see if anybody has left, like, a soda in there that I could take. And lo and behold, there was, for the first time I'd ever seen one, a white, zero sugar, ultra monster energy drink. And Therese, my life was changed from that moment on. I have become a Monster Zero Energy Ultra fanatic. There's a video on our social media where you can see my desk, and I have like dozens of empty cans just decorating my shelves like flowers. And it's not because I need the caffeine. Caffeine really doesn't do anything to me. I just like them. I think they're yummy, and I think the cans look really pretty. But it does. There's a certain stigma that comes with drinking an energy drink. You know, you're associated with a certain type of skateboarding, spray painting crowd, maybe, depending Vandals. On those delinquent juveniles. And so I think we have to consider, like, what does this look like for Christians? How should we handle this? And especially if you are someone who's sensitive to caffeine, is this something I should avoid, or all things in moderation? What do you think?
Okay, so I've never had an energy drink. I've never done like a 5-hour. I maybe have had like a sip. And I'm generally not a fan just because I've like heard of the things that they can do to people's bodies. I did for a while drink some like green tea drinks, like green tea extract drinks.
That's not even the same.
Which isn't the same, but it's so funny. The morning that I had my embolism, my pulmonary embolism, I had one of those drinks. And when I came home from the hospital, I threw them all away because I just associated it like with that. Not saying that it caused that, but it was just that thing of like, I just knew that in that moment I wasn't being healthy. And, you know, I mean, that's what I think it comes down to in Scripture, is that our bodies are something that we're supposed to steward. And if we're getting to the point where we need something regularly, chemically, to give us energy, then I have to kind of ask myself, am I getting the rest that I need? Yeah. Am I honoring the Sabbath in a way that is restorative? And if you're, you know, I'm not going to say, oh, you know, drinking energy drinks is sinful and, you know, that's the devil's potion or something. It's not true. But if it's something that you're constantly depending on, in the same way that some people are like, I got to get a quad shot espresso every morning, then I have to ask, like, is it becoming an idol? And with everything we talk about on this podcast, you know, it's about the heart. Now, I love me a good cup of coffee. I am a bit of a coffee snob. I like to grind my own beans, and I do pour over, and I do like French press, and I do all the fancy things.
We have kind of a running joke on our show of like, hey, Therese, how many caffeinated beverages do you have on your desk right now?
But the thing is that there are days where I don't drink any coffee at all.
Yeah.
Like
it's
today, did not have any coffee. And there are a lot of days where, you know, I'll have, you know, a liquid IV and it doesn't have caffeine in it. And I could have a soda. I usually do have like 3 or 4 just different drinks around during the day. But it could be a caffeine-free soda. Like, I'm not the kind of person who's like, I must have the caffeine. And I probably wouldn't notice if you swapped my caffeinated coffee for decaf on most days. But I'm also a person who knows on a Saturday afternoon that my body needs a solid nap. And that's where I wonder if sometimes we're substituting caffeine.
Oh, for actual rest.
For actual rest. You know, if you're not able to make it through the day, what is that saying about the busyness of your life? Because, you know, I find that hurry and worship usually don't exist in the same realm. And so if I'm running so hard that I have to chemically propel my body, then what am I missing from God?
Right. Oh, that's all very good. Yeah, rest and health are the two things that I think are at risk when it comes to caffeine and the beverages we consume and the food we consume for that matter. I want to make this clear. I have known people who like rely on energy drinks or coffee to get through the day, like they can't function without them, or they've been drinking them so long they get headaches if they don't have them. And I really don't want to be that kind of person. So if I have an energy drink, it is a treat. I may have one or two a month. For as many cans as are decorating my space.
87 years worth of energy drinks on that shelf.
I don't have them all that often. But I'm also the kind of person who, if I have a cup of coffee, I can literally fall asleep in the next hour. Caffeine does not bother me or affect me the same way as other people. Now, all that being said, I have done a great amount of research on monsters because I've had a lot of people question like, hey, aren't these like disintegrating your organs? Doesn't it make your liver turn into gelatin or something crazy like that because of all these chemicals that are in it? Everything that I have found is, hey, the most dangerous things in a monster or an energy drink is the sugar and the caffeine. Everything else is like secondary. Sugar and caffeine, those are the two biggest things. And some people fly through sugar and caffeine in coffee every day.
Right.
And those are the same people going, ugh, your energy drinks, they're going to like kill you.
Right. Gut check that Frappuccino.
We got to watch everything that we're putting into our bodies. And all things in moderation has kind of, it's a quote that has been quoted to death, but I think it's true. We should be aware of, okay, how much sugar am I consuming? How much caffeine am I consuming? How much rest am I fitting into my schedule? And how many good foods and beneficial sources of nutrients am I putting into my body and into my schedule?
There comes down to this idea of mastery. There's nothing in the Bible that says do not drink coffee, do not drink energy drinks. They're not a sin in and of themselves. But there is scripture in 1 Corinthians where Paul says, I will not be mastered by anything. So are you allowing your caffeine intake to master your productivity, your alertness, your kindness, your friendliness? Is it become the thing that you lean on? Is your first thought in the morning like, I need a cup of coffee? Or is your first thought in the morning, I need Jesus?
Yeah.
And there are some marketing messages that I think have raised some red flags or maybe even some beige flags.
Are you going to bring up the mark of the beast, the monster thing?
No, I'm not, but that is something that people have said. But they do use slogans like unleash the beast and fuel your grind and
that's true.
No limits. And that is different than what the gospel says. The gospel says that Christ gives strength to the weary, that Christ increases the power of the weak, and that when we put our hope in the Lord, He renews our strength. And so if we're substituting versus supplementing.
Yes, that's
key.
a good, yeah.
If you're substituting the power that you would get from Christ to get through your day with an energy drink, then that I would say is sinful. But if you're supplementing and you're still fully relying on the Lord to get through your day, but you also enjoy energy drinks.
Yeah.
Then I think that's fine. Rest is one of those things that in our modern society we struggle with. Like I feel guilty. I'm not even going to say we anymore. I feel guilty when I put aside the things that I have to get done and just take time to rest. But the thing is that when I do take time to rest, I am a better Christian for the world around me, for my family, for my friends, for my neighbors. Like cranky, sleep deprived me is not a good me, and super wired, over caffeinated me is also not a good representation of Jesus, And so if you are the kind of person who has 5 cups of coffee a day or has to have that energy drink every afternoon, that might be, maybe even just this podcast is like kind of a gut check to say like, okay, is this over me or am I over this? Because anything in our world all the wonderful things that God has blessed us with, any one of them could become an idol, could become a vice.
Yeah.
And it's all about like kind of the hierarchy of where you put it in your life.
I don't want to be the kind of person where if we're in an apocalyptic emergency scenario and, we're stuck out in the woods in the mountains for a few days and we have to forage for food, I'm like dead within 2 days because I didn't have my coffee or my Monster, Right. And sometimes I think we get really reliant on those, I don't want to say vices, but those substitutes was the word.
Substitute versus a supplement. Right?
Yeah, that help us get through the day. So supplements or substitutes, I really, really like that. I feel like that's a good title of the podcast right there.
You think? How about the heart behind the habits?
The heart behind the habits.
There's another look at it. You know, if you have a habit, and even good habits can be from the wrong place in your heart. There are people who work out in a way that is obsessive. And working out is a good thing.
Why are you looking at me when you say that?
No, I'm not. Well, just because you're the only person in the room with me right now.
That was unfair.
Let me look the other way. No, working out is one of those things that you know people who are obsessive about it. That's not a healthy balance either. People who run, every day. Running is good for your body, being restrictive with your calories, not enjoying what God has blessed you with. Those can all be very good things, or they can become really a bad heart behind the habit if they're taken to extreme. And so, we kind of joked at the jump, buzzed and blessed, but it is a little bit true. And I mean, there are people who will go to a church or not go to a church based upon the kind of coffee that they have.
Yeah.
And that's where I kind of go, okay, that you might have a problem if you stopped going to a certain church because they don't serve good coffee.
Hey, leash the beast, okay? Limits.
Can't say that on Christian radio.
Thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, you could subscribe, maybe. And if you really liked it, you could always say so by making a gift to Family Life, the ministry this podcast is a part of. Just go to familylife.org and find out more about what we do.
Our producer is Josh Yellen. How could we ever thank you enough? Did you know that Family Life offers a variety of podcasts? Get up to date with Family Life news, including the Noon Report and the 5 o'clock reports. There's If That Makes Sense, a conversation for Christians in their 20s. They're all free and on demand at familylife.org/podcast.